Good evening and assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Salam Media. I'm your host for this evening, Dhaki Dawood, and it is exactly 8 minutes past 7 on this beautiful Friday evening. Yes, the show is late. However, forces out of our control is the exact reason for this. Network went down, but we're back and we're better bringing you your favorite sports show of the week. Another jam packed lineup we have ahead for you. This time we're doing a different touch on sport. We're going to touch on sport tourism for a change. We're chatting in a bit to the founder and the chairperson of Footballing Girls, Moonira Ramathula, who's going to tell us a bit more about being inducted into the Hall of Fame for sports tourism. Well, that's something interesting, a different spin on things. And then after that, we're going to be chatting to your favorite athletes. We're going to do some results, some fixtures, what you can expect in the world of sport over this weekend. Interesting times indeed. But well, without any further ado, let me introduce to you Moonira Ramathula, the chairperson and the founder of Footballing Girls, the NPO, who's recently been honored and inducted into the Amazon of Sports Tourism Hall of Fame. An amazing achievement that many would dream of. Who knew there was tourism in sport? Come on, guys, 2022, wake up. Sport is making waves, and Moonira is doing so in the sports industry as well. Good evening. Assalamu alaikum, Moonira. Thank you for joining me on Salam Media this evening.
Good evening. Walaikum salam. Thank you so much for the invite.
Well, I'm glad we could have a moment of your time after being inducted onto the Hall of Fame. Moonira, an amazing week. You've been busy. You've been media interviews after media interviews. You've been around the country doing various projects. But just taking a moment to accept this honor of being inducted into the Amazon of Sports Tourism Hall of Fame. How does it make you feel, man? What does it mean to you?
It's actually quite humbling. I guess it's always humbling for me, but also amazing. And a lot of people didn't know that I actually am involved in the travel and tourism industry or the sports tourism industry. I think Footballing Girls kind of takes over so much that people think that's my day job. Footballing Girls is my passion. My day job is running a travel agency called SR Travel Services, amongst other things that I do. And at the end of the day, if that doesn't make money, Footballing Girls doesn't have money. It's not the other way around. But it's been very humbling, very exciting. Very different. I've been honored so much in the sports industry. I've never been really honored in the business industry as such. But I guess it's always kind of been in the background and people never really knew about it. So, yeah.
You're chatting sports tourism, and you know, for many sitting at home, they're amazed. They're like, sports tourism, what is that? And they're probably on Google, on their phones, on their computers now, find out what is sports tourism. Tell us a bit more about sports tourism and what does it consist of so that the broader public can have an understanding of it.
Look, I think, for me, sports tourism, my first wake up call with sports tourism was when South Africa hosted the 2010 World Cup. And that's when I really got a taste of it because you never really look at it that way. You're like, oh, a team is traveling to Cape Town. That is it. But if you have a team that's traveling out to Cape Town, understand that, yes, they go to Cape Town, they're not sleeping on the street, they're sleeping in the hotel. The hotels form part of the tourism industry. So they contribute to tourism in Cape Town, they contribute to tourism wherever they go. They're going to go to restaurants, they're going to do all of that. And that all includes the hospitality industry, the travel and tourism and the hospitality industry. But as I say, mine was with the World Cup. I was fortunate enough in that the airline that I worked for at the time was actually awarded the contract for the 2010 World Cup teams to transport the 2010 World Cup teams. And myself and a colleague were sent down to Durban for 6 weeks, during the World Cup. And we kind of just managed the logistics of the teams in Durban. The team that either stayed in Durban or flew into to play at the Moses Mabhida Stadium. And in that time, the teams would obviously then, because they had some sort of trust when it came to dealing with myself and my colleague, that would come and say, look, the guys have a day off tomorrow and they want to go somewhere. Where can they go? What can they explore within, KZN, or where they were staying? And some of them even, they'll be like, okay, we're flying back to, like the Spanish team, we're flying back to Potchefstroom. They stayed out in Potch. What is it that we can do for the day? So that the guys can just relax and enjoy the country while we are here. Some of them came out with their families, and their families wanted to experience the country. And that's basically sports tourism at its best, because you go into a country, you kind of invest into their tourism sector, and while participating in a sporting event. So that's basically what sports tourism is. And we never really look at it that way. I look at my clientele as well. My clientele is mainly sports clients. They travel out. I've got a team that's traveling out to Nairobi for the university sports games, at the Africa University sports games as well. They're going to experience Kenya. Firstly, they need to fly there, so they, airline tickets, they need to stay in hotels, they need to eat, they need to do a whole lot of things. And that's basically what sports tourism is. But also, I think it's looking at how do we then, and I guess that was the whole thing with the whole induction as well, is how do we then sit together and say, as women in Africa who are involved in sports tourism, how do we work with each other and work together to encourage more events that take place within the different countries, within, between ourselves, and how do we grow the tourism sector within those?
Well, you're definitely ticking boxes, and it's the engine behind everything that makes these things happen. And many a times it's taken for granted because people just take it for granted that a team will pitch up in whatever city they play in and come and perform. But the amount of pressure that's on you, that will be sorting their flights, the accommodation and things out. You a sports, it's a US sports manager, sports administrator yourself. And
Yeah.
how much effort and how much consideration do you take into all of this when you're busy booking flights and sorting out travel? Because I know you need to keep in mind time differences. You need to keep in mind altitude. You need to keep in mind um, a captain's run, for example, conditions, also fatigue, jet lag. Those are one of the things you need to take into consideration. Do you think that you being a sport administrator contributed directly in you becoming a Hall of Famer?
Look, I think it did, but I think I also got to learn a lot, because I come from, everybody knows that I come from a soccer mom background kind of thing, and yes, I got heavily involved in football, and dealt with professional football teams as such, but having to deal with the different the sporting codes. Obviously, I don't just do football teams that travel. I do athletics. I do a whole lot of other sporting codes as well. And I need to take cognizance of the fact that, like, I didn't know previously that, what, athletes, when they travel to a certain country, they've got to travel within a certain, before they actually have to perform, it's within a certain time frame, and kind of that. But being a sports person, then I got to understand that quicker and better, I guess. And that helps. It helps also knowing people in the sporting industry. And I think people are more comfortable with the fact that she's a sports person. So if we book with her, she understands what we're all about. She understands our needs. I understand what it's all about. If somebody says, look, I need pre-match meals, what is it that they need for pre-match meals? Because it's all of that. It's arranging all of that and trying to deal with all of that. For the teams as well. So it is a lot of pressure. There's really a lot that goes into it. And if you really don't understand the athlete as such, or you don't really understand the sporting industry as such, then it does create a bit of a problem, because you would think, if a team is playing at 2:00 in Cape Town, for instance, yes, some of them do say, yes, we can fly in the morning, and then when we get there, we'll just do a quick warm-up. But also, where I book them, or where I look for hotel accommodation, I need to make sure that where's their training ground, where they're going to be training. If it's an athletics team, what is it that needs to be done? Is there going to be media briefings and media interviews before that? Who needs to be there first in the event that, say, for instance, there's only 10 seats on a particular flight, and I have to then split the booking or split the group or who's traveling? How do I make that work? Who needs to be there first? Does the coach need to travel before the team? if they can't travel together, what is the setup for the day? What's match day, or what is an athletics event all about? What is a netball match all about at the end of the day? When can they travel? How can they travel? What are the time frames in between? What are rest days? When do they have rest days? Sometimes teams would fly immediately after a game and they come home and they have their rest days. But sometimes you'd find, there was a team that I used to book, and they had maybe a match today in Cape Town, and then they'd have another match, say, in 5 days, and then they'll say, we'd rather stay in Cape Town, so we need a space. And sometimes they'll say to us, do you know any training grounds that we could use?
Mm.
That kind of thing. So that helps, I guess. Yeah, it helps a lot.
Ish, the weight and the pressure on your shoulders. So now, if we know that these teams don't perform, that travel around the country, we need to find out who
No,
exactly is booking them.
no, 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 no,
Well,
no.
another feather in your cap, you'd say. But along with that, last week, you had the socials buzzing because you had a gown on for some reason. I mean, is there something that you don't do, or you just becoming this holistic sport administrator that the century needs to see? What was
Look,
that gown all about?
I did my postgraduate diploma in digital marketing. Um, at the time when I was looking around, actually, there were only 2 universities that are offering it. I'm not sure if there's more that are offering it, and I was fortunate enough to be accepted into the one. And yeah, that's what it was all about. I think education for me is very key in everything that I do.
Mm.
I've learned a lot when it comes to the digital industry and when it comes to digital marketing, social media. I've even put together my own personal branding course, which covers social media behavior and everything else about social media, about how do you build your brand on social media extensively. But I also felt that there's so much more that I needed to learn around it and also get a qualification around it. Digital media is the fastest growing thing in the world right now, and or digital marketing for that matter. And I think COVID also kind of put a catalyst into that and made it move even quicker. I don't think South Africa was ready, but I guess we are now. We were forced to being ready, but there's still so much more when it comes to digitization. I like seamless stuff. Anybody that knows me knows that I love automation and I love seamless stuff, irrespective of who you are, whatever industry you are in. So that's what that was all about. I got my postgrad digital marketing, yeah, in record time, I guess.
Well, congratulations for myself and the team here at Salah Media. We wish you all the best on that journey going forward. And how do you see
Thank
this contributing directly into everything else that you're doing? Because you've got footballing girls, you've got SR travel, like you've mentioned, you've got a family as well. How do you juggle everything? And do you have the same 24 hours in a day as us?
I do have the same 24 hours. Sometimes it does feel longer. Look, I think the induction, I'm really honored about it. I really look forward to working with a lot of other women within Africa to grow sports tourism, host some tourism events around the continent as well, and see how we can come together. Mine is always to push women, and whether it's in business or whether it's in sport, my agenda is just one. It's to ensure that women take their rightful place in everything, whatever it is that they do. So I think that will contribute a lot. I think yeah, my other qualification would contribute a lot to it. Look, it's not the end. I think there's always something new to do, something different. But I also feel that it's looking at how to do better,
Mm.
not for anybody else, but just for me, how do I do better? If I do something, do I do it right? And how can I improve on that?
Well, we can all take a leaf out of your book, a page out of your book as well. Maybe you could give us the chapter and teach us how to learn from you and just how to implement all of these things into your day to day life and just see how things run just so seamlessly. Well, from our side, it all looks like it runs seamlessly and, just making things work and come together. But Moonira, an amazing year thus far. We're only 6 months in it. What more can we expect from, the brand Footballing Girls and the other brand, Moonira Ramathula?
Look, I think I must say I really am blessed, and I really do thank God for everything, because it's really been a tough couple of months. I've really been through a lot in the past couple of months, not a couple of months, in the past year actually. It hasn't been easy, but I must say I really am blessed. And I guess it's also spirituality goes a long way. It really goes a long way. But I think, well, later this year, I hope to find myself in New Zealand, or I should find myself in New Zealand, because I will be presenting two topics at the IWG conference. So that's to come. Footballing
Nice.
Girls program will continue as per normal. I mean, we have our awards. We have the brunch, a women's brunch coming up in August, on Women's Day. Sorry, yes, on Women's Day. We're still continuing with the children's literacy program. We're going to host a few festivals now for Youth Month. We haven't hosted in 2 years because of COVID, but we're going back to hosting our Youth Month festival. So, yeah, there's a lot, and at the end of the day, as I say, I have to thank God for it all, because it's through Him that I'm able to do everything that I can do, and move out there, and change the world a little by a little. I always say I can't change the world, but I can change the world of one person, and I guess that's what I live by.
Well, we definitely need to live by that too, and make sure that we could follow in your footsteps, knowing that you've set the standard and the president for all future sporting administrators on what to aspire to, and just to know that the sky is not the limit. And just go after your dreams. And I think any sport administrator that's watching the show right now would realize that, what, if there's someone that could make it work, was you. The tourism industry coming to a standstill, being flat during COVID, and you still rise above all those circumstances to come out 2 years later and get inducted into Amazon of Sport Tourism's Hall of Fame. I mean, a massive congratulations to you. And you know what? Um, we have to obviously give a handshake and a clap, and you know what? Tell your family also, like, you know what I mean? It's to sacrifice as much for them as well, so that you can obviously excel and get all the benefits of all the hard work and effort you put in. A lot of sacrifices comes into it. And yeah, man, from our side, we just want to say congratulations, and we wish you all the best. And going forward, just know that you've always got our station and our station's backing, and we backing you guys all the way. So congratulations, and take it to the top from here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the platform, the kind words, the congratulations. Highly appreciated.
It's always a pleasure, and we look forward to having you on the show very, very soon again to tell us more about what you're up to and what Footballing Girls is up to. But we hope you have a great weekend further. We hope that the tourism hat is off and you can now enjoy time at home with your family for a change.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Well, it is now exactly 26 minutes past 7. That was Moonira Ramathula telling us a bit more about being inducted into Amazon of Sports Tourism's Hall of Fame, where she was inducted this past week. I mean, an amazing, phenomenal achievement. Well, if you didn't know that tourism in sport exists, rewind, watch that interview. Stay tuned to Salam Media. Stay tuned. Right after this, we're going to be having some more interviews. We're going to keep you up to date with everything that's happening in the world of sports. So we're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, make sure that you are glued to Salam Media. You tuned in and don't turn that dial. We will be back.